We will have bill introductions. I'm going to turn to the reviser. Matt, you have one for Representative Epley, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
RS number.
That would be 0843.
Thank you. Representative Epley, you have a motion? Introduce.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce a new version of the Tobacco 21 bill, as outlined in the RS number presented, and for your consideration.
Thank you. Without objection, it's accepted. Thank you. Other bill introductions from committee. Yes, Representative Arnkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request introduction of a bill on behalf of the ABC. Director Beavers asked me to work with the reviser and allow her to draft a bill regarding licenses for alcohol retailers, specifically out of state. The clarification that she needed. The RS number is 0799.
0799. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Matt, you have that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Without objection, it's accepted. Other bill introductions. Committee? Being none. Bill introductions from the audience? Being none. Bill introductions are closed. Just a couple of things before we start in on working a bill. We're probably not going to meet on Monday. We will meet on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The agenda will be coming out. I anticipate working the AG's reciprocity bill on Wednesday. We'll do it Tuesday. Unsure at this time, but just want to alert you, one of those days we're going to be doing that. With that, I will ask the committee, as to House Bill 2087, what is the pleasure of the committee? Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2087 favorably for passage.
Do I have a second? I have a second from the ranking member. Discussion. The chairman has an amendment. The amendment will be handed out. What this amendment does, and I'll briefly describe it, it changes the APA, the post-audit. In the bill, it has 2021, which is an oversight from last year's bill. This amendment changes it to 2023. That would give them an opportunity to see how it's going to work and see how they want to audit it. So it just moves it from 2021 to 2023, and I'll wait for her to hand that out. Members got a copy? Thank you. Based upon my motion to amend, is there a second? Yes. Representative Carpenter, second. Discussion on the amendment. Yes, Representative Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on this. Why 2023 instead of the 2022?
The post-audit feels they need an additional year because they don't know how the pandemic is going to work this year. So they can get a good grasp of what is needed, and then they can conduct it. As you well know, post-audit works. They only order their audits in April of each year.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Then I will close on my motion to amend. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The bill has been amended. Further discussion on the bill. Representative Arnkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment.
I'll ask your amendment to be handed out. While she's doing that, would you explain your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, so the amendment that's being handed out, I printed off copies. It's only includes the pages that have a change. And the simple explanation is it's lowering the threshold for requiring a public hearing from $3 million down to $1 million. And I think the changes in the bill are very helpful. The change specifically on the sequence of review helps the budget director. It also eliminates a lot of the unnecessary reviews of no cost and low cost rules and regulations, and it puts the focus on the high dollar ones. Because the threshold is $3 million or higher currently, it pretty much eliminates all reviews except for just a few. These rules and regulations add a lot of cost to our cities, our businesses, farms, ranches, and I believe the intention is to require a public hearing and allow the businesses and the organizations that represent them to appear at the public hearings and work with the agencies, hopefully to improve the regulations or reduce the burden. And I think it would be very helpful to all involved, especially on the business side, to lower the threshold to $1 million. What that does is it just simply requires a public hearing for the rules and regulations that will add years of costs. I'll be standing for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So my understanding of your amendment is just moving it from 3 million to 2 million, or to 1 million, with no other effect on the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And my next question would be, the bringer of this bill, Representative Highland, have you consulted with him? He's a former chairman of the Rules and Regs Board Committee, and I just would like to know what if you've spoken with him, and what his responses would be.
I've spoken with him loosely about the concept, I think, over the last couple years. We had the hearing previous session, and I also mentioned to him recently that I had a little hesitation on the number. I know that he worked with a group to come up with a compromise, if you will, which led to the introduction of this bill. And I think, and this is just my interpretation of his opinion, right? So I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but I think he is more interested in holding to the decision that resulted from that meeting with the interested parties, whenever that took place. I certainly respect the decision of that group, whoever was in there, but at the same time, looking at the original intent of the bill, I would disagree with the $3 million outcome and would like to see that number reduced. So I think I disagree with Representative Highland respectfully and would like to see the change to 1 million.
I have one other question. Had this been in the original bill, would we have had more or had any opponents to the bill, if you know?
Mr. Chairman, if I understand you correctly, if the change
if
to
the $1 million threshold was in the original bill, when we had the hearing, there were a number of proponents, but there were no opponents. In your estimation, would that have changed?
I think that there are certainly organizations which would like to see the $3 million threshold move down to 1 million so that more rules and regulations would require a public hearing and allow them to have input. And so these organizations, I believe, would be more in favor of the bill if the threshold was lowered. But I don't want to speak to them being opposition or proponent.
I understand. Based on my inquiry, questions. Representative Heiberger, did you have a question?
Comment.
Go ahead.
I'm going to oppose the amendment. I think we heard from the Director of Budget that the $3 million was already a compromise. They had initially proposed $5 million. His preference was to keep it at the $3 million level. And I mean, all these regulations do get hearings. I mean, even even if they don't meet the threshold, they don't have to have the special hearing. And it's my understanding that Director of Budget may reject a regulation if it exceeds the threshold. And please correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's shifting too much authority to the Director of the Budget, so I'll oppose the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I do have a comment. I'm going to support the amendment, and here's why. I'm not necessarily against the negotiation, but I'd like to hear some more. If the representative who presented this would care to bring an amendment on the House floor once we get it out there and explain further why the 3 million threshold would be should have more support. I'd be willing to listen to that then, but today I'm going to support the 1 million.
Thank you. But in the reverse, the committee member could bring it also on the House floor, and then the bringer of the bill would be there to defend it. He's not here, and I'm of the opinion that I will not support the amendment. I would encourage the committee member to bring it to the floor, because the carrier of the bill will be Representative Hyland, and he, as a former chairman of the Rules and Regs, knows more about this probably than anyone. So my thoughts are that this amendment should be brought on the floor of the House, where the entire body can review it. With that, Representative Lewis. I'm sorry, Lewis Reese.
I knew who you meant, Mr. Chairman.
Call him Lewis.
That's okay. I agree with the chairman on this. This amendment should be brought on the floor and eliminated from today's discussion, just based on Representative brought this bill, former vice chair of this committee, and I think there was a specific intent for the $3 million. And again, the debate on the floor would be maybe to allow more discussion as to why the bringer of the amendment wants it to be $1 million. From what I gather, I haven't heard any discussion on who, besides yourself, Representative, wants this $1 million. So I think that information would be discussed better on the floor. So I'll be supporting Chairman on not discussing this amendment at the time. I'll be opposing the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be supporting the amendment. When we had Adam Proffitt here testifying, and his written testimony talked about over the past 2 years, the Division of Budget has received, reviewed, and analyzed approximately 1,043 regulations, and he said only 11 of those would meet the $3 million threshold. That seems like an incredible winnowing of what had been the original bill that had been, I guess, approved 2 or 3 years ago, when I believe it was Representative Auerkamp asked him what was the differential from the $1 million to $3 million threshold, and he seemed to indicate it was maybe another dozen bills. I think it avoided the problem of overburdening the Division of Budget. And I thought his thing was eminently sensible. I would make the comment, I think it's much easier to debate an amendment in the committee than it is on the House floor. I mean, just, again, I'm obviously pretty new around here, but I think this is the place for the discussion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Auerkamp, you may move your amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I move my amendment.
Thank you. Representative Arnkamp has made a motion to amend. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Division has been called for by who? I didn't want for my record. Representative Arnkamp is called for the division. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. All opposed to the amendment, raise their right hand. It is tied 11-11. The chair votes no. Motion does not pass. Thank you very much. Moving back on the bill. Any further discussion on the bill? Yes, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about when, what does the public hearing process look like? That may be a question for the reviser or legislative research, but how, we have 105 counties in Kansas, so, and all these municipalities within those, how will they be notified if one of these regulations is coming down the pike?
I will turn that over to the reviser, not the reviser, research. Jordan, are you on? Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jordan Milholland, Legislative Research. It's my understanding of the process of rules and regs that the proposed rules and regs are posted in the Kansas Register, and they give a 60-day notice before the actual public hearing on the substance of those rules and regulations. And part of that, what's published in the Register includes an economic impact statement that's already been reviewed by DOB. I am afraid I don't have a lot of details on DOB's review process as far as how they contact agencies or affected parties when they review that economic impact statement, but I do know that that is published in the Register along with the proposed rules and regs during the public comment period.
Was that helpful, Representative?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did have a follow-up for Mr. Mulholland. Jordan, is all of that documentation made available online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so on the Secretary of State's website, they post a PDF copy of each set of proposed rules and regulations once it's open for that 60-day period. And so that does include the economic impact statement in those files, as well as what I'd previously mentioned with the publication of the Register.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative, if you would renew your motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2087 as amended favorably for passage.
Thank you. You have heard the motion. Do I have a second? Representative Reese is seconded. All in favor of passing out House Bill 2087 as amended favorably, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The bill passes out. Yes, Representative Heiberger. I'm sorry. Your vote will be recorded as an aye. Thank you. Aye. Anyone else would like to have their vote recorded? Representative Wagner is an aye. Anyone else? Seeing none? Oh, Stephanie Clayton is an aye. Good enough. Again, we'll be meeting tomorrow. We have a couple of alcohol bills. We've got an alcohol bill we'll hear on next week. Representative Arnkamp's bill, I plan on setting that for hearing next week. I'm not sure what day we'll be doing that. But next week we'll be busy. I do not anticipate us meeting on Monday. So if it's a pro forma day, which I understand it may be, you can come in a little later that day. Anything for the good of the committee? Yes, Representative Miller.
Are we not meeting on Monday because of events scheduled for Sunday?
No?
That's a good reason.
It probably is.
As I understood it, you got a new copier in your office?
Yes.
Does it have an enlargement feature on it?
Ask Connie.
Okay. Thank you.
I have an extra set of bifocals I'll be glad to, or a magnifying glass. Anything else for the good of the committee? Without seeing nothing, we are adjourned.